Hello and welcome to our final episode for Q1 of 2025. It's recap time where I'm in the cockpit alone, flying solo across the world, reconnecting with our gracious guests. And by now, you're probably familiar with the approach. We chunk down our episodes into 4 groups, clusters of 2 or 3 guests as it happens this time. And thanks to our brilliant marketing team, we're able to incorporate each of the promotional intros into this video to save you listening to my wonderfully crafted voice the entire time. So here we go with the first of our 3 guests for this quarter. They were Elizabeth Solara, Mike O'Grady, and Wendy Alexander. What a great trio to get us underway for January 2025. So let's strip back to the very beginning. And we first met Elizabeth Solara over in London in episode 141. And this was kind of exciting for me. It's back to the mothership and a country that I hold a special place for, given the friendship and the colleagues that I've met and worked with throughout my career. Elizabeth's a multi-award winning luxury brand business consultant, as well as an author, and a number of other factors. As the CEO and the founder of Diversity and Luxury Awards, she's a pioneering voice advocating for inclusivity and representation in the luxury sector. And as originally a microbiologist, right, and then a headhunter who ran hunting workshops for C-suite executives, she began her luxury business journey as a celebrated cake artist, earning international acclaim for her innovative designs and impeccable craftsmanship. Elizabeth's clients, really interesting, include ultra high net worth individuals as well as royalty. Her latest book, The Luxpreneur: How to Start and Build a Successful Luxury Brand, has been described as a blueprint for luxury business and a must read for any of you interested in working in the luxury industry. So do yourself a favor, check out the promo tracks for deeper insights. And I know you mentioned this in the book that we're going to speak about, but how do we define that? So what is a luxury brand? What is there some specific category or characteristics that bring it into that class?
That's a fantastic question, because it depends on, number one, when it comes to luxury is very personal. So when someone asks me, what is your most luxurious, whatever, to me, it's time and health. They're my two. It's not necessarily to do with, because a lot of people confuse luxury with a luxury lifestyle.
Right.
And to some people, a luxury lifestyle is opulence and spending and flying private jets. That is luxury to some people. To some people, it could be something completely different. It could be spending time with family, because I've certainly met billionaires and other sorts of people who don't even have 10 minutes to spend with their. So to them, being able to take their family away on holiday, that is luxury. So luxury has nothing to do with money, although money helps. I'm not going to lie. Money really, really helps. So luxury, number one, is personal. And also, when it comes to what you identify with and how you identify with certain types of luxury clients, again, that depends on your personal values. So there are certain types of luxury clients, for example, that if their values don't align with mine, I will prefer not to work with them, if that makes sense. So and these are things you learn the more you serve this group of people.
Right.
So when it comes to you setting up your luxury brand, price is it's an important part of it, but it's not the only factor, because people think that if it's expensive, it's luxury. But no, not everything expensive is luxury, but everything luxury by the very nature tends to be expensive. And for some luxury clients, if it's not expensive, they might not think it's luxury. So for me, things like branding, how are you putting yourself out there? How are you branding yourself? And I use peanut butter, for example. So
Right.
if you go to If you go to the supermarket and you want a jar of peanut butter, you buy, you leave. If your favorite brand is there, fine. If it's not, you find something else. But if it's a luxury peanut butter, say if it's a brand, that peanut butter, number one, will be in a completely different environment.
Mm.
It may be the only jar on display, and there's a story behind it. So the peanuts in the jar are grown on a certain type of soil, are watered by the dew flowing from the mountains XYZ, are handpicked and shelled on the laps of virgins, are blah, 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 blah. So by the time they tell the story around it, and then they also say something like, we're only producing 100 of these jars of peanut butter, and you can only get it from XYZ. So they introduce exclusivity, they introduce rarity, they introduce story, they introduce the craftsmanship. Everything builds and builds and builds, and that is what makes a luxury brand. And in my book, I talk about the 5 pillars of a luxury brand, but I use that story to kind of illustrate that once you put all that together, then you have the emotional resonance. Because if we think about the big brands that we know, when you think of, for example, Gucci, everybody knows Gucci. But what people don't realize was that Gucci actually started as a 17-year-old porter at the Savoy in London. All he did was handle luggage. And that's how he got the idea to create elegant luggage when he went back to his family business when he was 20 something. And then when you think about Louis Vuitton, the story around him is that he walked barefoot from his village 300 miles to Paris when he was 13. So again and again and again, luxury founders themselves were not luxury for the most part, but what they were able to create was luxury because of the emotional resonance and pull that they fed into their brand.
Next up, we're staying in the UK, but we're shifting across to Cork in Ireland. And this is our first time on the show and visiting Dr. Michael O'Grady. Dr. O'Grady is a STEM leadership and productivity coach and the founder of Be Wise and Rise. It's a company dedicated to helping managers in STEM industries achieve high performance without burning out. And with such a diverse experience, which spans semiconductors, medical devices, construction, Mike empowers STEM managers to design systems that help them gain control, reduce stress, and focus on what truly matters. So have a listen to the track from that conversation. It's really worth a listen. Are there any specific, so if we think about leadership in the field of STEM, in the different industries, are there any specific characteristics of a leader, skill sets perhaps that are most prevalent that you find that sort of jump out? I know that's a broad question, but I'm just wondering, is there anything specific that comes to mind when you think about leaders within this industry or these industries?
I think that's a really important question to ask and have the answer to. And that's the answer to this question is something I wish I would have known early on in my career. And that's the definition of what a leader is, particularly in the STEM industry. And I believe it's a little bit different to what other industries are.
Right.
So because we rely so much on technology today, we rely on people in teams to have expert knowledge on certain technologies and processes. And so we have leaders who lead the knowledge and the process managers essentially.
Right.
And we cannot have traditional leaders knowing that level of detail that individual expert knows.
Yeah.
The team lead needs to rely on that person to support them with the technical expertise and the information to be able to see things at the big picture, but then bring in the technical information to make the right decisions for the team and the business. And what I didn't know early on in my career was that it's so important in STEM to identify as being a leader, even if you're not leading people directly through the traditional route. You're in fact leading in a very different way. You're leading through the process and the knowledge and the technology. And that requires understanding who are the people that need to know about what you do.
Next, we're back in my home country, Melbourne, Australia, not my home state, but the country of Australia. And we're chatting with Miss Wendy Alexander. Team, it's really quite early still in the year, first quarter 2025, and I suspect many of you are probably working towards that career transition or a job change at least, and therefore you're likely to find this particular conversation quite valuable. Wendy is an interview and career coach, and she helps people look so good that hiring managers can't ignore them. She was herself once stuck, not knowing how to get out of the financial and emotional mess after a relationship breakup, left her broke, a single mum, drowning in debt. But she was able to turn things around. She invested in herself and found mentors, as well as a supportive community to turn her mess into success. So take the time, have a listen to this short track to get a greater understanding. And this happened back early in January.
Okay, so first of all, I'll say that I'm also a silver girl. You can see here by the sides, but you know, I like a bit of color in the hair. So I also fall into the silver tsunami crew. What I'm observing is that EQ skills have become incredibly important in the hiring trends at the moment. And what a lot of employers are recognizing is that those EQ skills are at their best in the older workforce. And that's not to say we believe that younger people can't have the EQ skills.
Right.
You know, the skills that are required to lead people, to collaborate with people, to work through very difficult times. And most projects hit difficult moments.
Yeah.
And what they're seeing is that some of the younger generation are coming through and they haven't yet gone through that real lived experience in the professional world. They haven't had the super difficult project where you have to work it from all angles, workshop it from every angle, work with vendors and partners and clients to try and make it work. And so this is what I'm seeing is that suddenly, my partner calls them gray hairs. The gray hairs are on the rise and companies are looking for people with this experience. So people that have got at least 20, 30 years experience in the workforce, which is our generation, the midlife person and beyond.
Yes.
Because they recognize that you don't get that straight out of university. You don't get that straight out of a grad or even someone who's been 10 years in the workforce. That comes with experience. And so it's twofold. One is that they want the experience for the people, the gray hairs, to drive the project. But the other is that they want to start developing their people.
Yes.
Which means the gray hairs become the mentors. They become the people that can teach the younger project managers or business analysts or whoever, whatever the title is, how to navigate difficult and challenging times. And this became a lot more prominent after the pandemic because there's all this emotional resilience that had to be handled. You know, people were in isolation for months on end. Here in the state of Victoria, we were the longest locked up city, Melbourne, right? Across the world.
Yeah.
So when people started coming back into the workforce or going back into the office, what they were noticing was that there was a lot of ineffective communication. Some people had challenges even socially with their colleagues. And so all of this is needed. And the ones that bring it are the ones that have already lived it, that have lived through these challenging times, overcome, worked through difficult projects, worked with bosses, gone through restructures and organizational restructures, all of these things. And so that's why the silver tsunami, they call it, is on the rise because the gray hairs are now in demand.
Mm.
right? And so what I want to do is encourage mid-level people to understand that their value has not diminished.
Well, that rounds out the first of our trio. Before we jump headlong into the next guest block, we're going to pause here for a short commercial break. I'm sorry, but did you know that our company, Coaching for Companies, offers small business consulting across various industry sectors, most specifically in engineering, manufacturing, and construction? And we try and leverage our proven 4x growth formula, of course, not relevant every client, but for most of our clients, and it assists the company and the leaders identify their gaps and to put strategies in place that help their businesses perform as well as grow. I mean, growth is so important. Head over to our website, complete the free business health check. You don't have to sign up, you don't have to register. There's no catch. Just do the business health check, see how you're looking. And then if you find there's something you want to talk more about, then you can contact us. There's no obligation. If you do contact us, our team will be more than happy to help and support you. All right. So with that, we're back and we're moving on to the next three guests that joined us on the show towards the end of January, moving into February in 2025. The first of our guests, Roberto Capodici, then we had Monica Milan, and we rounded out with Andy Semichuk. So starting with episode 145, and we met with Roberto on the shores of Bali, Indonesia, to have a chat about IT, blockchain. I mean, Roberto is really a legend in this space, and it was a real privilege to have the opportunity to meet with him. But he's not only a legend, but he's a powerhouse when it comes to really creation. And his core thing is decentralizing. So he's had the opportunity to work for the FBI in the States, for the NSA. He's been recognized for his contribution to this part of the industry by President Clinton. Blockchain was where he really made his greatest impact. And back in 2013, he started founding different ventures, looking at the application of secure document management, as well as how to use it in international trade, and creating systems that not only leverage blockchain, but also really dove into the secure online agreements. So Roberto has been pivotal in designing decentralized solutions across multiple industries. His strategic insight is driving the advancement of layer one blockchain technologies. Full confession, no idea what that is. And secure custodian ecosystems. Today, Roberto is at the forefront of developing a play-to-earn platform within a metaverse game, and he's leading the charge in decentralizing AI. And I think in the years to come, we're going to really be grateful for that. So take the time. It was a great conversation. Please have a listen to the promo and then take about AI in the future. But at the moment, reading through your bio and looking at everything that you've done up until this point is quite incredible. At the moment, from what I understand, you're working on a number of different areas or projects. But there was one that I read about that I'm puzzled by, so I'm going to ask you to explain, if you don't mind. Decentralizing artificial intelligence. So I understand the whole concept of decentralizing, etc. But what does it mean to decentralize artificial intelligence?
Well, artificial intelligence is something that is fascinating, scary at the same time. You think that we already pass human intelligence with artificial intelligence. So this is something quite scary and is happening. And you have this machine that practically has all the knowledge of the world, which no human can have, ready, and can think a million times faster than a human. It's like if you think maybe trees can think and communicate, but they do it so slow that to us they seem, like something not moving. Probably we look like trees to artificial intelligence in a certain way. I do believe that leaving such a power all in the hand of a single company, where 10 people, even less, decide what it is. Like humans are very easily gullible. We can be taken for a ride very easily, mostly from somebody that is, think if you meet somebody that is, we can call it a very simple person, you can take this person for a ride telling some stories and this person will believe you. Okay, we are that even less than that to artificial intelligence. So it will take nothing. And there is a lot of people that rely on their life now. So AI became their confident, their place to go for suggestions. So there are some scary part. Leaving everything in the hand of little few people is dangerous. Decentralizing it means that 10,000, 1 million people, they all contribute a little bit, and nobody has the full control of the system. So it grows with the very different inputs, so it grows healthier. And at the same time, there is no way to address this thing in one particular direction.
All right. From Roberto, we move on to episode 146, and we're heading to Johannesburg in South Africa, speaking with our guest, Ms. Monica Milan. Monica is a passionate leadership coach dedicated to helping emerging female leaders develop authentic confidence as they thrive in their careers. She's got over 18 years of experience in the corporate and IT sectors, and Monica's transformed her own journey through resilience, emotional intelligence, and a commitment to personal growth. She believes that women can be powerful leaders while embracing their unique strengths and authenticity, and there's no need to conform to the traditional all the time, which is often male dominated, and the traditional leadership styles. So as with all of the episodes, these are all educational opportunities for me as well as for you, hopefully. So check out this promotional track. So if we look at it from an EQ perspective and we talk about self-awareness, and you're talking a lot about strengths and values, etc., being aware of those, then you introduce the tool, which is the regulation side of influence and control. And I think it's a great dynamic that you're introducing for your clients. You mentioned you have the Holy Grail, so your values are aligned with your company values, which is fantastic, and you're also successful as a female leader. Are you finding individuals who are also able to find this level of success in those people you're coaching and working with?
Yeah, it's interesting. So obviously different people have different scenarios. So I have in the past coached ladies that are now at my level, and I've got no doubt that they'll surpass me soon. They're a lot more ambitious. In terms of corporate career, at this point in time, I'm focusing on, I found my niche. I'm happy to coach ladies. I want to start my own business, but these ladies I'm coaching, they want corporate careers. They want to climb the ladder. And so it gives me so much joy to see them succeed. And then on the other hand, I also am currently coaching this lady who has come to the realization that her values are actually not at all aligned with her company. And even though the company she's working for is a non-profit, and she feels deeply aligned with what the company wants to achieve, she doesn't like the way that they're going about it. And so she's actually in the process of making some life-changing decisions in terms of is this the role, not necessarily the role, is this the company for her? Should she find something else? Is there a different way that she can address this need in her to help the community without sacrificing who she is?
Right.
And so that is, it's a very interesting journey, and I'm so privileged to be a part of it. So yeah, ladies and from all spectrums and different scenarios, which is really heartwarming to know that, you know, we're all trying our best to add value.
All right, so rounding out our second group, as well as taking us to the halfway mark, is our guest from Toronto, Canada, Mr. Andy Semichuk. Andy has an incredible 50 plus years of experience, helping over 10,000 clients with legal problems. Really interesting background. He started working in this field after experiencing his own family immigration problems, and he's personally endured the questioning from immigration officials, and he wanted to help others avoid the same unpleasant experience. Really nice individual. Has since become an authority on the topic in the US as well as in Canadian immigration. He writes articles for Forbes, as well as speaking internationally on the subject. He's a member of the bars in Ontario, British Columbia, in Canada, as well as in New York and California in the States. He's so well versed in both US and Canadian immigration laws, and it allows him to fully understand the circumstances and the technicalities that are involved when dealing with immigration across the US-Canadian border. And of course, we tried to steer clear of the political discussion that was going on at the time of this recording, but you know, the tariff issue, the claiming Canada as the next state of the US, it's really starting to cause some tensions between the two countries. So have a listen. Really interesting educational track as well. The connection between journalism and law. Did you study journalism? Like, did you study writing, or where did that come through?
I did have a little bit of a connection. That was in Canada previously. I had done some work, both, well, primarily on the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, from a legal point of view. I had written some materials, some briefs pertaining to their Broadcasting Act and what they should and should not be doing in terms of broadcasting in Canada. And that helped to draw me into the journalism world. But I can share, and it's a long story, but I'll give you a short version of it. When I started writing in the early days of my life, still while I was a student, I was pathetic in English. Like I took a course called English 101 at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. And I barely got through that course, just barely. 50% they passed me. And so I was pathetic at writing. And it took a long time for me to kind of crank up my skills, writing skills, to the point where I could write articles for, you know, from the United Nations. But it happened just simply because I was writing all the time. You know, if you want to get good at something, do it all the time. But not only do it, you have to also study how to improve. You know, but if you do, I mean, no matter what you do, there's a philosophy of life that goes along the lines of, if you take anything that you're really interested in, any field or whatever, and you spend 5 years of focused effort on it, you can become virtually a world expert. You know, if you focus it carefully enough and you spend enough time at it. So in a sense, that would be an explanation of how I went from a pathetic writer, you know, that my English prof today would turn over in his grave if he knew that I have published, you know, 5 books, and for the last 10 years, I've been a contributor at Forbes, you know. So, but that's the way it goes, I guess.
All right, so coming into our third quarter, and it's time for another short commercial. At Coaching for Companies, we offer 3 core services. As mentioned previously, we support small businesses in the industrial sector through our performance and growth consultations. Another service is the ET Development Division. This is where the ET project sits, and the podcast is one of those, but we offer 4 free services under the ET project. We've got these weekly podcasts, we've got our monthly live broadcasts, we offer quarterly masterclasses, and we have the quarterly challenges. We have the next quarterly masterclass, by the way, at the end of this week on Friday, 28th of March. So if you have time, pop across and check that out, 90-minute session. So in parallel to the ET project is our ET Academy. And this is both for B2B as well as B2C clients. And it's the formal side, if you like. It's the premium side of what we do for our executives in their skills development. So here we offer short form virtual masterminds, working our way up to tiered flagship longer duration development programs. Now, the virtual masterminds are 8 hours in length, 4 2-hour sessions. The flagship duration, anywhere between 3 days up to 12 months. And they're part-time, of course. The 3 days is full-time. The longer form, 10 weeks, 6 months, 12 months, they're part-time. Plus, we have the pinnacle of the academy, which are our elite destination masterminds, where we conduct 3-day getaways in some exotic location somewhere in the world. If you go on our website and you have a look on our web pages, you'll see more about that. But if you want to learn more, by the way, our website is coaching4companies.com. That's the number 4, not the word. So coaching, no space, coaching4companies.com. Send us a query if you prefer. You can go to our contact us or our connect page. You can send us a query. We're here to support you. So, all right, with that, let's get back into our third group and our third quarter. Very interesting group joining us here, Miss Tracy Irwin, Mr. Henry Wong, and Miss Rhiannon Albert. So let's start with Tracy. Oops, sorry. So episode 148, and that means that we head back to one of my favorite locations, the area of Altea in Valencia in Spain. Wonderful country, particularly if you have time to travel around and go and do some sightseeing. Incredible place. Tracy is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, coach, business mentor, world traveler, lover of all things crafts and anything salted caramel, as she told me during the conversation. In 2002, Tracy founded an award-winning bookkeeping and accounting practice back in the UK. And then in 2016, after moving to her Spanish home, she still oversaw the practice back in the UK, but from a more hands-off strategic level. And eventually she decided to sell in 2024. So that's a incredible journey in itself. She has an immense amount of experience as well as knowledge and insights from the highs and the lows of running the operation. She wrote a book to support that. It's a transformative guidebook for all small business entrepreneurs. I've had the pleasure of reading it. It's called 1, 2, 3, The Ultimate Business Blueprint to Gaining More Time, Freedom, Without Losing Your Sanity. If you have an interest in running a small business, then check out this full-length video and audio track, or just go and check out the promo that you can see in this particular episode. And another area that I know for small business operators, whether they own the business, whether they're running the business, is this ability to, it's not pushing back, but it's the ability to say no. If I say yes to this, something else is going to suffer, and I need to be able to say no. As simple and straightforward as that sounds, the human psyche, particularly for people who are passionate about what they do, struggle to do this. How did you bring that about as part of your toolkit?
A lot of it is structure. So I am that entrepreneur that loves the shiny new object. I'm not going to deny that. Like I learned a long time ago that if it's not a hell yes, it's got to be a no, because there is so much out there that we could do, that we can look. I've also got like a policy that I have to go to sleep on something for a week. And if I still think it's a good idea after a week, then I'll start to research it, because there's so many ideas I've had in the past where I have thought, oh, that's a good idea. And then I just start it over and it's like distracts me from everything else that I'm meant to be doing. And then I'm like, oh, that didn't work. That was rubbish. Why did I do that? So it was a couple of things. I have a could-do list. So every year I go down everything that I could do, and then I pick the goals that I'm going to do for the next 90 days, so that the could-do list stays there. I've not forgotten about it, but often when I come back to it in the next quarter, I'll take some of the stuff off because I'm not interested anymore, and or the time's passed. And having a structure, so my diary is very color coordinated. It's very structured, and I put time in my diary for when I do my work with myself. I'm a big believer that, you know, you are your most important client. And when you turn up at a meeting with a client, like I turned up with you today, I would have never have let you down. So when I make a meeting with myself, like, why would I let me down? Like, I'm my most important person. So in my diary is chunks of time when I'm actually going to get work done. And every Friday, I go through what I need to do next week, and I actually write the titles into those time brackets. So I already know what I'm working on next week. And that as well, the unconscious brain, when we go to sleep, gives me ideas. So because on a Friday I leave, my brain is, I'm walking the dogs, I'm crocheting over the weekend, I'm painting, I'm very, and whilst I'm doing that, the ideas are forming because I already know. And I think that planning and that kind of structure is very necessary for people with really active entrepreneur brains, because we can get distracted so easily.
Moving on. Next up, we're back to Toronto, talking with speaker, brand strategist, marketer, writer, designer, creative director, Mr. Henry Wong. Henry has guided small startups and SMEs right through to Fortune 500 companies. He's been a brand guru for politicians, professional athletes, as well as company leaders, and is a frequent speaker on branding and creativity. I definitely learned a lot through this conversation. Henry grew up in the back of a Chinese restaurant. He used to entertain his customers at the front of house with different stories, tall fish stories or big fish stories, if you like, small jokes. And these days, he does it now a little bit more refined, but on behalf of brands, large and mid-size, looking to have a positive impact on the world. So he specializes in strategy, branding, ideas, and content, right? Another great conversation around marketing. So if you're interested in marketing at all, if you're running a small business, you need to be, check this one out. And if I'm starting from scratch today and I want to develop my brand, is that the area that you would start working with your clients? Would you get them to come to this realization to be able to describe themselves that way as a starting point, or are there elements that you do in parallel? Like, how do you approach this concept?
Yeah, so for example, the one word is almost a bit of a reverse funnel. So just using my hand movements, it's a little bit like coming down to that one word and then expanding out. And what I mean by that is that you fill the hopper with all sorts of information. So typically when I work with people, we do interviews with yourself. So we find out a lot about you. You might complete a questionnaire, you might complete a personality test, but that's, again, only your perspective. I begin interviewing people around you, for example, and this is the same with products and services. You find out, you do consumer research. So I may interview a client of yours, I may interview some close people. This begins to formulate a lot of different perspectives of what you're all about, because the way you look at yourself may not be the way other people see themselves. So by folding all this in, we do the work together, and then we begin finding that there is some commonality to it. Once we begin doing this and we begin papering the wall with all these different sort of traits and attributes that you have, you begin to boil it down. You can see that there is a certain repetition of a couple of key words. And from that, we look at what is the one word that you want to begin to own that could be your brand. Make a circle around that, and we begin to see, oh, perhaps it is curiosity, perhaps it is something related to that. And from there, we begin to build it outwards. And very much like a product or service, you look for ways in which you could tell that story in the way, instances which prove that you've made use of it and been able to exemplify it in some way. That begins to form a lot of the story. And sometimes it goes back as far as well before you embarked in the career. And I think when you were asking me earlier about a little bit of my pedigree, so one of the things that I've often talked about is growing up in the back of a Chinese restaurant. For me, that formulated a lot of what I begin to understand as wonderful storytelling, because my parents didn't speak a word of English, or very broken English, but fortunately I was in school. I had a good command of the English language, and I was pushed to the front of the house, essentially taking cash as an 11-year-old, serving customers in that way. But I found that by sharing and telling stories and telling jokes, my tip jar seemed to go a little bit higher than usual. And, I didn't think much of it till years later when I began to dissect the power of storytelling. And that's certainly just one instance in which, by connecting with people, by being able to share elements with yourself, I think you can find that pathway to just a wonderful customer relationship.
We're coming to the final guest in this third group, and we're heading to another new location for the show, Boise, Idaho, located in the northwest of the States. And we're chatting with Miss Rhiannon Albert. Rhiannon is the founder of My Trusted HR, and she offers executives and HR teams tailored HR strategies, leadership, as well as training. She's got more than 24 years experience serving multiple industries. And Rhiannon is really passionate about people, and you'll see that come through as you listen to our conversation. But she loves being proactive and guiding positive partnerships with leaders to really try and help strengthen their ability to create lasting change. So, team, you may be guessing as you're listening today and thinking about the timing of that conversation. It's shortly after the presidential inauguration. There's a lot happening within the States. There's a lot happening with people and with companies within the States. So you can probably imagine the challenges that somebody like Rhiannon is facing, but also the opportunity for companies to leverage her expertise. So being a fractional CHRO probably has gone up in difficulty by a notch or two. I think you would probably agree. So I love talking with any HR expert, but I love talking with Rhiannon. So check out this track, and I'm sure you'll agree. It was a really great conversation. As you work in the HR, so my pedigree within the HR space is in the learning area. And I'm wondering, how much do you get involved as you come in as a fractional CHRO or COO or whatever role you're playing, how much do you get involved with the learning side of the organization?
Personally, I am a big fan of this space just because I think it's so critical for leadership development, for just providing opportunities within the organization. It's such a critical piece, and I think businesses that invest in this space are always going to be better off.
Right.
But it just depends on the needs of the leadership. So if that piece is working and functioning, and I still might offer some suggestions based on workflows and overarching processes and the strategy of the organization, where we need to grow, maybe where we're needing to hire. So I'll always utilize the resources of the organization or make recommendations. But if it's not something that is necessarily broken, it might take me a bit to get to that.
Right. Yeah, right. I was wondering, I guess, around the reskilling, the upskilling, with the technological advances, with the whole dynamics within business today, and the need for all of us to be continually refreshing our skill levels and knowledge level. How are you seeing organizations approach that? Have you had any particular experience that you think is like a good example versus one where it's been ignored?
Yeah, I have experienced clients that make it a priority to invest in this space. They are on top of, the advancements with AI. They're on top of, or wanting to stay on top of, what do we need to be doing to reskill, and simply just provide opportunities for growth, or, ladder changes, or, hopping over to another department.
Yeah. All right, we're on to the fourth and final quarter, and that means, guess what? Commercial time again. So you've heard us introduce two of our three service functions or pillars: small business consulting and executive development. Our third area of focus is coaching. It's where we started. It's what we focus on when we coach is business coaching, career coaching, leadership coaching. We also are very strong in team coaching as well as group coaching. So whatever it is, we've pretty much got you covered. Like I said, it's where we started. Our coaches are all seasoned professionals. They've run their own companies. They've worked as advisors, mentors, executives, and they've coached extensively across global and with global clients. So we also ensure that you're kept current through our approach, and that is by experiencing the latest technology through our tripod coaching packages. So if you do sign up with us, you have the option, it's always an option. There's different price tiers, of course, but we give you access to your own AI coach, as well as the human coach, if that's what you desire. And then we combine both with our coaching management platform, where you as the client have direct access to the notes, the tools, the templates, the action plans, etc. So it really does ensure that we keep you, the client, as our center of focus and attention. Interestingly, if you are interested, then we have some great material on our website, Coaching for Companies, as I said earlier, coaching4companies.com. And then if you wish to connect with us, either through booking a call or sending us a message. All right, hopefully you can sense the enormous value on offer, not only through our company, but through this podcast itself and the amazing people that come on the show as our guests. So let's jump in to the final two guests, Mr. Sid Moazib and Miss Christina Chen. Sid was our 10th guest for the quarter. Remember, we only have 11 guests this quarter because of the way the Tuesdays stack up. But Sid was our interesting guest. One of my favourite conversations, I have to say, because Sid is both entrepreneur and philosopher. And I love having philosophical conversations when possible. But Sid is a really interesting character. He's a best-selling author. He's a serial entrepreneur, venture investor, university professor, as well as innovation leader. So following the success of his books, The Caterpillar's Edge and You Are Not Them, he's also been actively involved in high-level advisory, early-stage investments, as well as multiple speaking engagements worldwide. An adjunct professor at USC Marshall Business School, as well as the Vitaby School of Engineering, which is quite an interesting dynamic between business schools and engineering schools. Sid focuses on AI, data analytics, and dynamic business strategies. Oops, I better bring up Sid's image, otherwise he won't be too happy. So he shares his expertise through TED Talks, articles in Harvard Business Review, in Forbes, as well as other top publications, and as a mentor to entrepreneurs. So with a track record of founding and selling companies, advising Fortune 500 executives, and serving on boards of cutting-edge AI and tech firms, Sid continues to shape innovation as well as leadership across industries. And when you listen to it, you'll understand he has considerable experience as well as expertise, and he really likes to offer his insights as well as create thought-provoking questions to get you thinking. So check out this incredible discussion through the promo track, and then go to have a listen to the full episode. Sid generously provided a special offer as well that you'll find when you go to our website and you look at the recording page of this episode, as well as you'll find it on the YouTube in the notes on the YouTube video. You mentioned a little bit earlier about this flux that we live in and how technology is really increasing the rate of change all around us. If you put on your multiple caps, right, consultant, advisor, investor, professor, philosopher, whatever role you're playing, how do you see that future, be it short, medium term?
So let me put the philosopher hat on first, and then we'll drill it down on real life parameters. There was 40,000 years ago, an era began. It's called the explosion era.
Right.
Explosion era began when human beings, began to understand math, the additions and subtractions. And they also began to clothe themselves, some basic stuff. Mm-hmm. And then that era, after it began, obviously we see all the stuff that happened. Agriculture came, and this came, and that came, and then they began to look at microscopes to look at within, to telescopes to look at without, then printing, then all of that sort of stuff that has happened. Up to this point, the evolutions have been from a mostly physical perspective. That is, you and I were shorter, taller. We had different look and face. We created the knife, and therefore our teeth began to not be as long. We had babies in certain ways. We stood on our 2 feet. All of that stuff has been basically physical. Now, something external has come. Call it a new fire. And we call this AI, that allows us to have the processing power of 10,000, 100,000 people next attached to our head simultaneously. So I'm not just a unit of one. I can access any book ever written. I can think of any calculation anyway that could have taken years and it would be done in seconds.
Yep.
So I have now been given a processing power unlike I have ever had in the past 500,000 years.
With that, we're down to our final guest of Q1 2025, and we're heading back to London, and we're meeting up with CEO of First AI, Miss Christina Chen. So First AI is a company dedicated to helping entrepreneurs effectively adopt AI, and Christina, who has a computer science background from the University of Cambridge, one of my favorite universities, and over 20 years in technology, is a recognized thought leader in AI adoption as well as AI talent. This is the latest episode to be released just last week. Christine is passionate about fostering diversity in AI, particularly in increasing representation and inclusivity for women in the field. Team, as you can imagine, I'm sure with the daily developments that are occurring in this space, you will have heard me talking about in the intro, but things like or developments in generative AI, in the language models like DeepSeek, like Quinn, like Tulu, just to name three examples, and these are all really recent to market. It's such a timely conversation as well as really interesting. So Christina and her team are witnessing firsthand. They have this business that enables them to experience firsthand the challenges that companies are experiencing, as well as not just the company overall, the broad overarching company, but also their employees. And they're struggling in facing or adapting and keeping pace, as you can well imagine. I'm sure you are, I am, everybody is. And you'll hear during our conversation that Christina cautions us that implementing AI solutions needs to be treated as you would any major initiative. That is, as a transformation, meaning that the workforce needs to adopt and they need to work towards the adoption. It's not a one-time set and forget. It's something you have to work on, just like any other change initiative. So many insights coming from this episode, team, and such a critical juncture in history to be talking about this. Don't miss a minute of it. As Christina says, and I love this, what a time to be alive.
Specific. Second is enterprise ready. So we are working in enterprise environment. So a lot around responsible AI, ethical AI, security, compliance, governance, etc. It's very important. And third is empathy. It's all about third is about empathy is, hey, we are actually the human face of AI, right? We are literally the person who sits next to Sue, next to Tom, right? That helping them. Hey, did you know you can do this on AI? And tell me about how you work every day. And did you know we can do this for you that, takes the boring stuff out of, your daily work or the tedious stuff. That's the human side. And this is how you really drive adoption from the grassroots. So that's where we see it working really well. So there's both a top-down and a bottom-up approach, where the grassroots, you have people walking the floor and be that human face, so you can actually help people to start to change their work habit and start to use it daily. Yeah.
So it's very much a change process. So you bring in AI to the business, reading some of your material is really about a transformation rather than just adapting AI. And so you have to be able to transform the whole workforce towards leveraging and using it to its maximum. So therefore, for me, as I read it as a novice who's looking in from the outside at AI, it's really looking at that whole change process to make sure that I have change champions, or in this case, AI champions who can work beside the business to help them really integrate all of the benefits.
Yeah.
Is that what your people are really trying to do?
Yeah, yes. We use the analogy that when the companies say bought an AI tool, right, whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT Enterprise, etc., it's like giving the employees a Ferrari to drive. So every employee got their Ferrari, right? And everyone thought, oh, I know how to drive. I've been driving my whatever car to work every day.
That's a wrap on our guests for this quarter. But as always, we'll have another wealth of leadership experience, insights, and learning heading your way in quarter two. To kick off the quarter, we start with a family singing group who at the time was set to rival the Jackson 5. The question will be, have you ever heard of them? You'll have to listen to the episode to find out. Our guest is Mr. Keeper Katrin Whitney, and a really interesting topic that we're going to be touching on. Now, as you know, the podcasts are exciting, but we do so much else other than the podcast. So there's other events coming up in the quarter. In fact, as I already mentioned at the beginning, this Friday, 28th of March, we have our 90-minute masterclass happening. Check out our website where you can go and register for free. Then in April, we have the next Ultimate Challenge. This time it's a 3-day challenge, 90 minutes each day. And the topic is unlocking the power of storytelling, one of my favorite challenges. Followed by in May, when we host a virtual mastermind called Communication as a Core Strength. Yes, it's a follow-on from the storytelling. We did that intentionally. Now, as I mentioned, the mastermind consists of 8 hours of sessions, 4 2-hour sessions, and they're really intense, they're immersive. You have a whole program that you work through on our mastermind.com platform. And then capping off the quarter 2 of 2025. And for the first time ever, we're running back-to-back virtual masterminds, as well as our quarterly masterclass. The mastermind is catering to the demand that we've received from leaders of companies who are wanting to learn the basics of coaching without having to go so deep, where they go and attend a 3-day ICF qualifying program. Our coaching mastermind, of course, is a 1-day, 8-hour session. And it's specifically geared towards giving leaders the capabilities to understand how to coach professionally and properly, but for their own team members, not looking at the qualification aspect of it. Of course, they can follow on later if that's something of interest. All right, team. So with that, we've reached the end of this recap. Hopefully this short review has triggered some fond memories and perhaps flagged an episode that you wish to go back to for a second listen. I hope so. But all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and bye for now.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.